That was the first thought that crossed my mind as I pushed the creaking wooden door open and felt the rush of stale, warm air hit my face. Dust particles danced in the slivers of afternoon light cutting through the small circular window at the far end. The house had been silent for 3 days now, ever since we laid my grandmother to rest in the old cemetery overlooking the lake she loved so much. I wasn't ready to be here. But someone had to do it. My mother couldn't face it. She stood in the kitchen downstairs, mechanically washing dishes that were already clean, her grief too fresh, too raw. So I volunteered. I told her I needed to keep busy. The truth was simpler. I needed to be alone with the ghost of a woman who had raised me, who had been my entire world after my parents divorced when I was 6. Grandma Helen. The name echoed in my mind as I stepped fully into the attic, the floorboards groaning beneath my feet like they remembered every secret they'd ever kept. And this attic kept many. I'd spent countless childhood afternoons up here, digging through trunks of vintage clothing, trying on her old hats and costume jewelry, pretending I was a movie star from another era. She'd sit on that old wicker trunk over there, watching me with those knowing eyes, telling me stories about the handsome men who had given her those brooches, those bracelets, those broken promises. But that was 20 years ago. Now the attic felt different. Smaller. Heavier. Like the space itself was holding its breath. I started with the obvious things. Boxes of Christmas decorations I'd seen 100 times. A mannequin wearing a wedding dress that wasn't hers. She'd bought it at an estate sale, she once told me, because she said every dress deserved to be remembered. Old vinyl records with scratched surfaces. Photo albums documenting lives I recognized and lives I didn't. The afternoon stretched on. Sunlight shifted from gold to amber. Dust clung to my skin. I found the showbox just as I was about to give up for the day. It was shoved beneath a pile of moth-eaten quilts in the corner farthest from the window, as if someone had tried to hide it but couldn't quite bring themselves to bury it completely. Not hidden, exactly. Just placed. Deliberately. Carefully. The box was ordinary. The kind you'd buy cheap shoes in 20 years ago. Faded navy blue with a white stripe around the edges. The corners were soft and worn, like someone had held it many times. But what stopped me cold was the ribbon. A faded pink satin ribbon, tied in a perfect bow, holding the lid in place. Grandma Helen's ribbon. I recognized it because she kept a spool of it in her sewing kit. She used it for everything. Wrapping gifts, tying back curtains, marking special things. She once told me she'd worn that same ribbon in her hair on her wedding day, and after that, she could never throw it away. It became her signature. Her way of saying, "This matters. Remember this." My hands started shaking before I even opened the box. I knelt there on the dusty floor, the afternoon light fading around me, and carefully untied the bow. The ribbon slipped away like water. I lifted the lid. Letters. Dozens of them. Stacked neatly, chronologically, held together by rubber bands that had grown brittle with age. Cream-colored envelopes. Military postmarks. Stamps from places I'd seen on news reports. Dusty corners of the world where young men and women fought wars that felt distant until they weren't. And on each envelope, written in clean, elegant handwriting that I'd never seen before. Clara Evans. My name. Not my grandmother's name. Mine. I pulled the top envelope from the stack. The postmark was dated 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was living in the city, working at a marketing firm I hated, dating a man who would eventually leave me for someone he met at a gym. 2 years ago, I called my grandmother every Sunday and she always sounded happy to hear my voice, always told me she loved me, always asked if I'd met anyone special. She never mentioned letters. She never mentioned my name on envelopes in her possession. I pulled another envelope. Another postmark. Another military base. Another address. Her address. My grandmother's house. With my name on it. And another. And another. Dozens of them. Stretching back 2 full years. The earliest postmark was barely legible, the ink smudged from time and handling, but I could make out the date. It was from the week I started my new job. The week I moved into my first real apartment. The week everything in my life felt like it was finally beginning. While I was beginning, someone was writing to me. While I was living my ordinary life, someone was sending pieces of himself across oceans, addressed to a woman he must have known only through imagination. And my grandmother, my sweet, loving, protective grandmother, had kept them all. Why? The question hit me like physical force. I sat back on my heels, the letters spread around me on the dusty floor like evidence at a crime scene. My heart pounded against my ribs. My mouth went dry. Had she read them? Of course she had. The ribbon. The careful organization. The placement in the attic where no one would look until after she was gone. She had read every single word. She had made a choice. And now she was dead, and I was here, holding proof of a secret she had carried to her grave. I should have stopped. I should have gathered them up and taken them downstairs, called my mother, asked questions, demanded answers. But I couldn't move. I was frozen there, kneeling in the attic of my childhood, staring at the remnants of a story I never knew existed. Finally, with hands that wouldn't stop trembling, I reached for the first letter. The envelope was sealed. Not glued shut. Envelopes from military bases came sealed. That was normal. But this one had never been opened. I could tell because the flap was still perfectly flat, still adhered along its entire length. My grandmother had kept these letters intact. She had stored them, hidden them, but she hadn't opened them. That detail broke something in me. She wanted to keep them from me. That much was clear. But she also wanted to preserve them. She wanted them to exist, unopened, waiting. For what? For me to find after she was gone. For some moments she knew she wouldn't live to see. I slid my finger under the flap and tore it open. The paper inside was thin, military issue, the kind that folds into its own envelope to save weight and space. The handwriting matched the envelope. Clean, deliberate, masculine. A soldier's handwriting. A man who had been taught to be precise, to leave nothing to chance. I unfolded the letter. The date at the top was 2 years and 3 months ago. Dear Clara. 2 words. That's all it took for my entire world to shift on its axis. You don't know me. I hope that doesn't make this letter strange, but I understand if it does. My name is James Callahan. I'm a friend of Michael Torres, your old neighbor from when you were a kid. He talks about you sometimes. We are stationed together out here, and when things get quiet, which isn't often, he tells stories about growing up on Maple Street. About the girl next door who used to build forts in her backyard and always share her snacks. About you. I know this is strange. I'm writing to someone I've never met, from a place I can't describe, in a situation that doesn't make sense to anyone who hasn't lived it. But Michael said you were the kind of person who understood things. The kind of person who listens. And right now, out here, that's what I need. Someone to listen. Even if you never write back. Even if this letter ends up in a drawer somewhere, unread. I just need to say these words to someone, and Michael said you were safe. So here goes. Today was hard. Not harder than yesterday, but harder than tomorrow will be, I hope. That's how we measure time out here, by how hard the day was. We don't think in weeks or months anymore. We think in survival. In the faces of the men who made it through and the ones who didn't. In the sound of helicopters and the way the sand gets everywhere, even into your dreams. I thought about home today. I thought about normal things, rain on a window, the smell of coffee in the morning, a woman's laugh. And I don't know why, but your name came into my head. Clara. Michael said you laugh easily. He said when you were kids, you used to laugh at his jokes even when they weren't funny, just to make him feel good. That's the kind of person I'd want to come home to. Someone who laughs easily. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to say this. To someone. To you. If you get this letter, know that somewhere in the world, a stranger is grateful you exist. That's all. Be safe, Clara. James. I read it twice. 3 times. The attic grew darker around me, the windows shifting from amber to grey, but I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't do anything but stare at the words of a man I'd never met, written on the other side of the world, addressed to me. Michael Torres. I remembered him. We were neighbours until I was 12, when his family moved away. He was 2 years older, awkward and kind, with glasses that were always sliding down his nose. We built forts together. We shared snacks. I hadn't thought of him in years. And now, through him, a stranger had found me. Through him, a soldier named James had decided I was safe. Through him, my grandmother had received these letters, read Michael's name, recognized the address, and made a choice. The question burned in my throat like swallowed fire. Why, Grandma? Why did you keep him from me? I looked down at the stack of unopened letters in my lap. Dozens of them. 2 years of words from a man who had reached out across an ocean because Michael Torres told him I was safe. 2 years of thoughts, fears, hopes, confessions. 2 years of someone believing I was listening. And at the bottom of the stack, held by a separate rubber band, 3 letters that looked different. The envelopes were thicker. The postmarks were more recent, from 8, 9, 10 months ago. The handwriting on these was shakier, less controlled. I reached for the top one. The most recent. Dated 8 months ago. My hand stopped just above it. Somewhere downstairs, my mother called my name. The kitchen lights flicked on, their glow spilling up the attic stairs. Dinner. Questions. The normal world, waiting. But I couldn't go down. Not yet. Not until I knew. I pulled the letter from its envelope. I told my mother I needed to finish organizing, that I'd grab something later. She didn't argue. Grief had made us both comfortable with lies. I heard her footsteps retreat to the guest room, heard the click of a door, heard the old house settle into its familiar nighttime creaks and groans. And I read. I read by the light of a single bare bulb hanging from the attic rafters, surrounded by dust and memories and the ghosts of choices made before I was born. I read until my eyes burned and my fingers were stained with the ink of words never meant to reach me this way. The first few letters were careful, tentative. James wrote like a man testing ice, unsure if it would hold. Dear Clara, you didn't write back. That's okay. I didn't expect you to. I just needed to say something to someone who isn't here, someone who doesn't know what this place looks like, what it smells like, what it does to you. Michael said you'd understand. I think he was right. Even in silence, I feel like you're listening. Today we lost a man named Rodriguez. He was 19. He liked country music and had a girl back home who sent him cookies that always arrived crushed. He used to say the cookies tasted better that way, like they'd traveled as hard as he had. He won't get any more cookies. He won't get anything. I'm writing this because if I don't write it, I'll dream about it. And I'm so tired of dreaming about it. So thank you, Clara, for being a place where I can put these words, even if you never read them. I read that one 3 times. Then I set it aside and reached for the next. The letters came faster after that. Every few weeks, then every week, then sometimes 2 in a single week. James stopped apologizing for writing. He stopped explaining. He simply trusted. Dear Clara, Michael showed me your picture today. The one from his sister's wedding, remember? You were a bridesmaid. You wore blue. You were laughing at something off camera, someone making a face, and your head was tilted back and your eyes were closed and you looked so alive. So completely, totally alive. I stared at that picture for a long time. Long enough that Michael noticed. He just smiled and said, yeah, she's like that. I don't know what that means, but I keep thinking about it. About you. There's a woman here. A medic. She laughs like that sometimes, when one of the guys tells a stupid joke or when we get mail and someone's family sent something ridiculous. Her name is Danielle. She reminds me of you, I think. Not because you look alike. I don't even know what you look like, really, not from one picture, but because she laughs like tomorrow matters. Like whatever happened today, tomorrow is worth laughing about. I want to come home to that. To someone who believes in tomorrow. The letters painted a portrait of a man I'd never met but was beginning to know. His fears. His hopes. The way he missed his mother's cooking and his father's terrible advice. The way he'd started a garden in a small patch of dirt behind his barracks, just because he needed to see something grow. The way he carried a worn paperback of the old man and the sea in his pocket, and read it so often the pages were falling out. Dear Clara. The garden died. Too much sun, not enough water, and someone's boot accidentally crushed the seedlings. Stupid to care about something so small, right? Stupid to plant anything in a place like this. But I cared. I really cared. And now I'm sitting here, in the dark, trying to figure out why a dead plant hurts more than the things I see every day. Why the small losses are the ones that break you. I think it's because the big losses, the men, the missions, the moments you can't forget, those are expected. Those are the job. But the garden was mine. It was something I chose, something I made. And watching it die felt like watching a piece of myself go with it. That's what you are to me now, Clara. Something I chose. Something I made in my mind. And I'm terrified of losing you too. My throat tightened. The attic felt smaller, the air thinner. I set the letter down and pressed my palms against my eyes until I saw stars. He didn't even know me. How could someone miss a person they'd never met? I reached for another letter. And another. Hours passed. The moon rose outside the small window, casting pale light across the scattered envelopes. I learned about James's childhood in a small town in Ohio, about his father who worked at a factory and his mother who taught piano lessons. I learned about the dog he had as a boy, a golden retriever named Duke who waited for him at the bus stop every day until the day he died. I learned about the girl he loved in high school who broke his heart, and how he joined the military partly to prove something to her, partly to prove something to himself, and partly because he didn't know what else to do. I learned about the war. Not the version on the news, but the real version, the boredom and the terror, the camaraderie and the isolation, the way men became brothers and brothers became ghosts. Dear Clara, we lost Sergeant Hayes today. He was the one who taught me how to tie my boots properly my first week here. Showed me which knots held and which slipped. Said a man's life could depend on something as simple as a knot. He was right. I keep thinking about knots. About all the things we tie ourselves to. People, places, memories, promises. I think I've tied myself to you. Is that strange? To feel connected to someone who doesn't even know you exist? Maybe that's the only kind of connection that makes sense out here. The kind that doesn't ask for anything back. The kind that just is. I hope you're happy, Clara. Wherever you are. Whatever you're doing. I hope you're laughing. I wasn't laughing. I was crying. The tears came silently at first, tracking through the dust on my cheeks, falling onto the thin paper in my hands. I wiped at them frantically, terrified of smudging his words, of damaging the only evidence that this man, this stranger who had somehow become the most intimate presence in my life, had ever existed. I didn't understand why I was crying. I didn't know him. I'd never heard his voice, never seen his face beyond a single candid photo at someone else's wedding. And yet, sitting there in my grandmother's attic, surrounded by the proof of his devotion, I felt like I was grieving someone I'd loved my whole life. Because he had loved me. That was the truth I couldn't escape. This man, this stranger, had spent 2 years writing to me. He had shared his darkest moments and his smallest joys. He had imagined me, hoped for me, tied himself to me with knots I never knew existed. And I had been living my ordinary life, completely unaware. I thought about the last 2 years. The boring job. The failed relationship. The weekend spent doing nothing, going nowhere, being no one. While James was surviving a war, while James was planting gardens and burying friends and reading the same book over and over just to feel something familiar, I was complaining about traffic and worrying about my weight and wondering if I should dye my hair. The shame of it burned in my chest. He deserved someone better. Someone who would have written back. Someone who would have waited by the mailbox, checking every day, desperate for word from him. Someone who would have loved him the way he deserved to be loved. Instead, he got me. Silent. Unknowing. Unworthy. But then I remembered. My grandmother. She was the one who kept these letters. She was the one who made the choice. If James had addressed them to her house, if he'd sent them through Michael's connection, then my grandmother had been receiving them for 2 years. She had watched them arrive. She had held them in her hands. She had tied them with her special ribbon and hidden them in the attic. She had stolen my chance to know him. The thought was ugly and I hated myself for thinking it. She was dead. She was my grandmother, the woman who raised me, who loved me, who sacrificed everything so I could have a better life. How dare I blame her for anything? But the thought wouldn't leave. It curled in my stomach like a snake, waiting. Why, Grandma? Why? I reached for the next letter. The dates were getting closer to the present. The handwriting was changing too, less controlled, more urgent. The sentences were shorter. The hope that had colored the early letters was fading into something darker. Dear Clara, I dream about you now. Almost every night. Not anything specific, just you. Your face from that photo, laughing. Your hair. Your hands. In the dreams, we are always somewhere normal. A coffee shop. A park. My mother's kitchen. You're laughing and I'm watching you and everything is quiet and safe. Then I wake up. I don't know how much longer I can do this. The war, I mean. The waiting. The not knowing if today is the day. The guys here, they talk about going home like it's a guarantee. Like they'll just get on a plane and everything will be the same as when they left. But I don't believe that anymore. Nothing is the same. I'm not the same. I think about you and I wonder, would you even recognize me? Would you see the man I was or the man I've become? Would you still laugh? I'm scared, Clara. I'm scared of what I've become. I'm scared that even if I make it home, I won't know how to be there. I'm scared that the only place I feel real anymore is in my dreams of you. Write to me. Please. I know you don't owe me anything. I know I'm just a stranger. But I need to know you're real. I need to know that somewhere, out there, the woman in my dreams actually exists. Please. I stared at the word. Please. 3 letters. 1 desperate plea. And I hadn't answered. Because I never knew. Because my grandmother took his letters and hid them. Because she decided, for reasons I couldn't understand, that this man who loved me sight unseen should never reach me. The tears came faster now. I clutched the letter to my chest, pressing it against my heart as if I could somehow send my response back through time, as if I could reach across 2 years and tell him, I'm here. I'm real. I'm listening. But I couldn't. All I could do was read. All I could do was bear witness to the love of a man I'd never met, preserved in paper and ink, hidden in an attic, waiting for a woman who found it too late. I looked at the remaining letters. 3 of them, held together by a separate rubber band. The envelopes were thicker, the paper inside folded more times. The postmarks were from 8, 9, 10 months ago. The handwriting on these was different. Shaky. Urgent. Like someone writing in a hurry, or in pain. I pulled the rubber band free. The first of the 3 letters was dated 10 months ago. I unfolded it carefully, the paper thinner than the others, almost translucent in the dim attic light. The handwriting was James's. I knew it now, the way you know the shape of someone's face after studying their photograph, but it was different. Less controlled. The letters slanted where they used to stand straight. Words were crossed out, rewritten, crossed out again. Dear Clara, I don't know how to write this. I've started it a dozen times. But I need you to know something. I need you to know that you're not just a stranger anymore. You haven't been for a long time. Michael told me something today. We were sitting together, waiting for news about a mission, and he started talking about you. Not the you from his childhood, the you now. He told me about your job, your apartment, your favorite coffee shop. He told me about the time you called him last year, just to check in, just to see how he was doing. He told me you asked about the guys he served with. He told me he mentioned me. He said your voice changed when he said my name. Not much, but enough. He said you asked questions. What did I look like? Was I nice? Did I have anyone waiting for me back home? Clara, he told me you asked if I was lonely. And I realized something. Something I should have realized months ago. You knew about me. Michael must have told you I was writing. He must have mentioned my letters. And you never wrote back. I told myself that was fine, that I didn't expect anything, but you knew. You knew I was out here, thinking about you, writing to you, hoping. And you said nothing. I'm not angry. I want to be clear about that. I don't have the right to be angry. You don't owe me anything. But I need to understand. Did you read my letters? Did you know what I was going through? Did you know how much I needed someone, anyone, to tell me I wasn't alone? Or did someone else read them first? Michael said you live with your grandmother. He said she's the one who gets your mail, who keeps your old room, who raised you after your parents split. He said she's protective. Fierce, he called her. The kind of woman who would do anything to keep you safe. I keep thinking about that. About what anything might mean. If she's been getting my letters. If she's been reading them. If she's been making choices about what you should and shouldn't know. I don't want to believe that. I want to believe you just weren't interested, that you had your own life, your own problems, your own reasons for staying silent. That would be easier. That would make sense. But Michael said your voice changed. He said you cared. So I have to ask, did you ever get my letters? Did you ever know I existed? Or have I been writing to a ghost this whole time? I need to know, Clara. I need to know if you're real. If we are real. If any of this matters. Please. Just tell me. The letter ended there. No signature. No closing. Just that plea, hanging in the air like smoke. I read it again. And again. Each time, new details emerged, new wounds opened. Michael had told her about James. Michael had called her, mentioned the letters, watched her reaction. And my grandmother, my fierce, protective grandmother, must have known. She must have realized that James was writing, that Michael knew, that the connection between us was becoming real. So what did she do? I looked at the next letter. Dated 9 months ago. The handwriting was worse now, shaky, almost illegible in places. Like someone writing through pain, or exhaustion, or both. Dear Clara. Something happened. I can't tell you what, operational security, they'll screen this letter. But something happened and I'm not the same. I keep seeing things. Hearing things. Last night I woke up reaching for my rifle and my hands were covered in blood that wasn't there. They're sending me to talk to someone. A doctor. They say it's normal, that everyone goes through it, that I just need to rest and I'll be fine. But I won't be fine. I know that now. I won't be fine until I know about you. I called Michael. Used the satellite phone, which I'm not supposed to do, but I needed to hear a voice from home. He told me he talked to you again. He told me you sounded different this time, quieter, like something was wrong. He asked if you'd gotten any letters from me and you said no. You said you'd never heard of me. Clara, that's not possible. I've sent dozens of letters. I've sent them to your grandmother's address, the one Michael gave me. I've sent them every week, sometimes twice a week. They can't all have been lost. Unless someone is taking them. Unless someone is making sure you never see them. I don't want to believe that. I don't want to think that anyone would do that, would steal something so personal, so important. But I also know what people are capable of. I've seen it. I've lived it. And I know that love, real love, protective love, can make people do terrible things. Is that what this is? Is your grandmother protecting you from me? From the idea of a soldier writing to you from a war? From the possibility of loving someone who might not come home? I need to know. I need to understand. Because if she's been taking my letters, if she's been hiding them, then I've been writing to her all this time. I've been sharing my soul with a stranger who reads my words and decides I'm not good enough for you. And that might actually break me. I love you, Clara. I know that's crazy. I know I've never met you. I know love isn't supposed to work this way. But I've spent 2 years writing to you, thinking about you, dreaming about you. You're the reason I get up in the morning. You're the reason I keep going when everything in me wants to give up. You're the only good thing in a world that has shown me nothing but darkness. And if your grandmother has taken that from me, taken you from me, I don't know what I'll do. I'm coming home soon. Not yet, but soon. They're rotating us out, giving us leave. I'll be in your town. Michael gave me the address of the old train station near your grandmother's house. He said it's abandoned now, but there's a flower cart that sets up on weekends, run by an old man who grows the most beautiful sunflowers. I'll be there. On June 14th. I'll be the one holding yellow flowers. I'll wait all day. Just in case. Just in case you never got my letters. Just in case you didn't know. Just in case, somehow, someway, we still have a chance. I love you. I love you. I love you. If you get this letter, if you ever read these words, know that someone on the other side of the world loves you more than he ever thought it was possible to love anyone. Know that you saved his life, just by existing. Know that he will wait for you, however long it takes, wherever you are. James. The letter fell from my hands. June 14th. I scrambled through the stack, my fingers clumsy with tears, searching for the final letter. The one dated 8 months ago. The one I had started to open before my mother called my name. I found it. Ripped it open. Unfolded the paper with shaking hands. Dear Clara, I'm wounded. Not badly, they say. Just enough to send me home earlier than planned. I'm on a medevac flight tomorrow. They're sending me to a hospital near the capital, then home for recovery. Home. I keep saying that word, trying to make it feel real. Home. Your town. The train station. Sunflowers. June 14th. I'll be there. I'll wait all day. I don't know if you'll come. I don't know if you ever got my letters, if you ever knew I existed. But I have to believe. I have to believe that somewhere, somehow, you're out there. That we're meant to find each other. If you're reading this, Clara, if your grandmother gave you these letters, or if you found them somehow, please know that I meant every word. Every single word. You kept me alive. You kept me human. You kept me hoping. I'll be at the station. June 14th, Sunflowers. Come find me. Please. James. The date. June 14th. I pulled out my phone. Checked the calendar. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely swipe the screen. June 14th was 8 months ago. 8 months ago, a wounded soldier had waited at an abandoned train station, holding sunflowers, hoping for a woman who never came. 8 months ago, while I was living my ordinary life, completely unaware, James had stood alone on a platform, watching every face that passed, waiting for someone who didn't know he existed. 8 months ago, my grandmother had hidden this letter, this final, desperate plea, in her attic, tied with a special ribbon, kept from me forever. And James. Where was James now? Was he still waiting? Still hoping? Still believing that somehow, someway, I would come? Or had he given up? Had he decided that I didn't care, that I never cared, that 2 years of letters meant nothing to the woman who never answered? I thought about him standing on that platform. The sunflowers in his hand. The hope in his heart. The wound that had sent him home. Was it physical or emotional? Both, probably. Both. I thought about him watching the morning pass. The afternoon. The evening. The moment when he finally accepted that she wasn't coming, that she was never coming, that the woman he loved existed only in his imagination. I thought about him walking away. Alone. Still wounded. Still hoping. Still believing that maybe, just maybe, there was an explanation. And now I held that explanation in my hands. My grandmother. My fierce, protective, loving grandmother. She had done this. She had taken his words, his heart, his love, and hidden them away like secrets too dangerous to be kept. Why? The question screamed inside my skull. Why would she do this? What possible reason could justify stealing 2 years of someone's life, someone's love, someone's hope? I needed answers. I needed to understand. And there was only one person who might know. I gathered the letters, shoved them back into the showbox, and stumbled down the attic stairs. My mother was in the kitchen, making tea. She looked up as I entered, saw my face, and went pale. Clara. What's wrong? I held up the showbox. My hands were still shaking. Who was James Callahan? My mother's face crumbled. And in that moment, I knew she knew. The cup rattled against the saucer, ceramic against ceramic, a sound that seemed too loud in the sudden silence of the kitchen. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her face told me everything. The recognition, the guilt, the grief that had nothing to do with my grandmother's death and everything to do with the box in my hands. You knew, I whispered. She closed her eyes. just for a moment. When she opened them, they were wet. "Sit down, Clara." I didn't sit. I couldn't. I stood there, clutching the showbox like a lifeline, watching my mother compose herself the way she'd done my entire life, by swallowing her feelings and putting on a brave face. But this time, the brave face wouldn't come. "Your grandmother," she began, then stopped. Started again. "Helen wasn't just protective of you. She was terrified." Terrified of what? Of losing you the way she lost your grandfather. The name hung between us. I'd heard it my whole life, but always in fragments, always in half-stories. My grandfather died before I was born. That was all I knew. That was all anyone would tell me. My mother gestured to the chair again. This time, I Saturday. "Your grandfather's name was William. He was a soldier too. Not in this war, a different one, a long time ago. He wrote letters to your grandmother for 2 years. Beautiful letters. She kept them all her life. Did you know that? She kept them in a box under her bed, tied with the same pink ribbon she used on everything." I looked down at the showbox. At the ribbon. The same ribbon. "She waited for him," my mother continued, her voice soft and distant, like she was reading from a book she'd memorized long ago. "He wrote that he was coming home. Gave her a date. A place. She went there, dressed in her best dress, holding flowers. She waited all day." I felt the air leave my lungs. "He never came." "No," my mother said. "He didn't. She found out later, weeks later, months later, that his transport had been hit. He died 3 days before he was supposed to come home. 3 days. And she never got the letter telling her. She just stood there, waiting, while he was already gone." The kitchen swam around me. I gripped the edge of the table. "She waited all day," my mother repeated. "She told me about it once, when I was your age. She said she never fully left that train platform. That part of her was still there, still waiting, still hoping. She said that's what love does to you. It makes you wait forever." I thought about James. Standing on a platform. Holding sunflowers. Waiting. "She got the letters from James," I said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "All of them." "Every single one." I pulled the stack from the box, fanning them out on the kitchen table. Dozens of envelopes. 2 years of words. 2 years of love. She read them. My mother hesitated. Then, yes. At first, she told herself it was to protect you. To screen them, make sure they were appropriate. But after the first few, she couldn't stop. She said reading them was like reading your grandfather's letters all over again. The same hopes. The same fears. The same love written from a place she understood too well. That doesn't excuse it. No, it doesn't. I picked up the final letter. The one with the date. The one that told me about June 14th. She hid this one too. My mother's eyes fell on the envelope. Something flickered across her face. Pain. Guilt. Something else I couldn't name. She hid them all, I said, my voice rising. 2 years, Mom. 2 years of letters from a man who loved me, who needed me, who was out there fighting a war and thinking about me to survive. And she took them. She stole them. I know. She let me live my life completely unaware while someone on the other side of the world was pouring his heart out to me. She let him think I didn't care. She let him stand on that platform alone. I know. And now he's gone. He's probably gone. He probably gave up, moved on, decided I was never coming. Or worse, what if he's still waiting? What if he's been waiting for 8 months, thinking about me, wondering why I never showed up? What if he thinks I didn't care? My mother reached across the table. I pulled my hands away. Don't. Clara, listen to me. No. You don't get to explain this. You don't get to make excuses for her. She's dead and I loved her and I'll always love her, but this, I slammed my hand on the letters. This is unforgivable. My mother sat back. She looked old suddenly, older than I'd ever seen her, The grief of losing her own mother mixing with something else, something deeper. "You're right," she said quietly. "It's unforgivable. And I'm not going to make excuses. But there's something you need to know. Something your grandmother told me before she died." I waited. She knew she was sick for a long time before she told us. Months. She had time to think about things, to regret things, to try to fix things. My mother paused, choosing her words carefully. She told me about the letters 3 weeks before she passed. She made me promise to tell you something if you ever found them. What? She said to tell you that she was wrong, that she let her own grief blind her to yours, that she saw in James the same love she'd had for your grandfather, and she was so terrified of you living through what she lived through, the waiting, the hoping, the loss, that she tried to protect you from it. But all she did was hurt you. Hurt him. Hurt everyone. I stared at her. That's it. That's her apology. No. That's her confession. The apology is something else. My mother reached into her pocket and pulled out a piece of paper. Folded. Worn at the edges, like it had been handled many times. She wrote this the week before she died. She made me promise to give it to you if you ever found the letters. I didn't know what it said until after she was gone. I read it at the funeral home, sitting with her body, and I couldn't. I couldn't give it to you. I was going to, I swear, but then you found the letters yourself and... I took the paper from her hand. It was my grandmother's handwriting. I knew it instantly. The elegant loops, the careful spacing, the way she dotted her I's with tiny circles because she said life was too short for plain dots. But this writing was different. Shaky. Unsure. The hand of someone who knew they were running out of time. My dearest Clara, if you're reading this, you've found the letters. And you hate me. And you have every right. I'm not going to ask for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm going to tell you the truth instead. The truth I should have told you years ago. I didn't just hide James's letters because I was afraid. I hid them because I recognized something in them that I'd only seen once before, in your grandfather's letters to me. The same voice. The same heart. The same love that doesn't need to see someone to know them completely. I fell in love with your grandfather through letters. I never met him before he deployed. We grew up together, yes, but we were children. The man who wrote to me, the man I fell in love with, was someone I built from words on paper. And when he died, I didn't just lose him. I lost the person I'd become through loving him. I was terrified the same thing would happen to you. But that's not the worst of it. The worst is this. I kept reading his letters because I fell in love with him too. The paper trembled in my hands. Not the way you might think. Not romantically. But I fell in love with the man who loved you. With the way he saw you. With the person you became in his words. You were so beautiful in those letters, Clara. So alive. So worthy of love. And I wanted to keep that version of you safe, hidden away with his words, preserved forever. I was selfish. I was wrong. And now I've stolen something from you that I can never give back. But I can give you this. James isn't gone. I found him. 3 months ago. After I got sick, after I realized what I'd done, I hired someone to find him. It took weeks. He's not in Ohio anymore. He moved after he got out of the hospital. But I found him. He lives in a small town about 3 hours from here. He works at a bookstore. He walks with a cane. And every Sunday, he goes to the local train station and buys sunflowers from a cart. Just in case. He's still waiting, Clara. He's been waiting for 2 years. He doesn't know about me. He doesn't know about the letters. All he knows is that a woman he loved through words never came. I'm giving you his address. It's at the bottom of this letter. I don't know if he'll forgive you. I don't know if he'll even believe you. But I know that you have to try. You have to tell him the truth. You have to give him the chance to decide. I love you, Clara. I've loved you since the moment I held you. And I'm so sorry that my love became the thing that hurt you most. Please forgive me. Not because I deserve it, but because holding on to anger at a dead woman won't bring you peace. Only he can do that. Go find him. Go find your soldier. All my love, always. Grandma. I looked up. My mother was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. Below my grandmother's signature, in different ink, fresher, darker, was an address. A town name I'd never heard of. A street. A number. 3 hours away. 3 hours to the man who'd been waiting for 2 years. I looked at the clock on the kitchen wall. It was nearly midnight. The train station. The sunflowers. The man with the cane. Tomorrow was Sunday. I didn't sleep. I spent the night on the living room floor, surrounded by letters, reading them again and again until the words blurred and the dawn crept through the curtains like a slow forgiveness. My mother brought coffee at some point. She sat with me for a while, not speaking, just present. Then she went to bed and left me alone with the ghost of a soldier and the hope that he might still be real. At 6 a.m., I showered. At 7, I dressed in the only decent clothes I'd brought, a simple blue dress, the color of the sky after rain. I didn't know why it mattered what I wore. It just did. At 8, I was on the road. The drive was 3 hours of farmland and small towns, of radio stations fading in and out, of my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I played the letters in my head like a soundtrack. His voice. His words. His love, written across 2 years, waiting for me to catch up. I thought about what I would say. How do you explain 2 years of silence to someone who poured their soul into letters you never received? How do you apologize for a grief you didn't know you caused? How do you prove that you're real, that you're here, that you've loved him through words too, even if you only just read them? I had no answers. Only the road. Only the hope that he would still be there. The town was smaller than I expected. One main street. A hardware store. A diner. And at the far end, near the train tracks, a small station house painted faded yellow, with a sign that read, * depot, estimated 1892. My heart stopped. I parked across the street and sat there, engine running, staring at the platform. It was nearly empty. A few benches. Weathered boards. And near the entrance, a cart. A wooden cart painted white, filled with flowers. Sunflowers. Bright yellow against the grey wood, like hope refusing to die. An old man sat beside the cart, reading a newspaper. He wasn't James. James would be, what? 30. 32. The letters hadn't mentioned his age, but he couldn't be old. The war was recent. His wounds were recent. I scanned the platform. Empty. The benches. Empty. The waiting area behind the glass doors. Empty. He wasn't here. Of course he wasn't here. 8 months had passed. 8 months of Sundays, 8 months of waiting, 8 months of hoping. No one waits that long. No one holds on to hope for that long. I'd come too late. I sat there, hands still on the wheel, tears blurring the sunflowers into yellow smears. I should have come sooner. I should have found him months ago. I should have. A movement. At the far end of the platform, near the tracks, a figure emerged from the shadows of the station house. A man. Walking slowly, carefully, using a cane. He moved like someone who'd learned to measure each step, to count the cost of every movement. He stopped at the flower cart. I watched him reach into his pocket, pull out some money, hand it to the old man. Watched the old man select a bunch of sunflowers, the brightest ones, the fullest, and wrap them in brown paper. Watched the man take them, hold them close, and turn toward the benches. He Saturday. Alone. Flowers in his hand. Waiting. Just like he'd said he would. 2 years of Sundays. 2 years of waiting for a woman who never came. And still, he was here. I don't remember getting out of the car. I don't remember crossing the street. One moment I was sitting behind the wheel, paralyzed by fear and hope and the weight of everything unsaid. The next, I was on the platform, my heels clicking against the old wooden boards, the sound too loud in the Sunday morning quiet. He didn't look up. I stopped a few feet away, close enough to see the lines on his face, the ones that hadn't been there when he wrote those first tentative letters. Close enough to see the cane leaning against the bench, the way his hand rested on his thigh like the leg still hurt. close enough to see the sunflowers in his grip, their petals brushing against his wrist. James. My voice came out wrong. Cracked. Too quiet. But he heard. He looked up. And the world stopped. His eyes. I'd imagined his eyes 100 times while reading his letters. I'd pictured them blue, or green, or brown. But they weren't any of those. They were grey. The colour of storms. The colour of the ocean before rain. And right now, they were full of something I couldn't name. Shock. Hope. Fear. All of it, mixed together. He didn't speak. Neither did I. We just looked at each other, two strangers who knew each other better than anyone alive. Then I held out the showbox. He stared at it. At the faded navy blue. At the pink ribbon I'd retired that morning. The same ribbon my grandmother had used. The same ribbon that had bound his words for 2 years. What is that? His voice was rougher than I'd imagined. Warmer. Real. Your letters, I said. All of them. I found them yesterday in my grandmother's attic. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared at the box like it contained the answers to questions he'd stopped asking long ago. She took them, I continued, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Every single one. She hid them in the attic and never told me. I didn't know. I swear to you, James, I didn't know you existed until yesterday. I read them all last night. Every word. And I drove here as soon as I could because your last letter said you'd be here on Sundays and I didn't know if you'd still be waiting, but I had to try. I had to. Clara. My name. In his voice. The same voice that had written my name on dozens of envelopes, that had whispered it across oceans, that had dreamed it in the dark. I stopped talking. He set the sunflowers on the bench beside him. Slowly, carefully, he reached for the box. His fingers brushed mine as he took it. The touch lasted less than a second. It burned through me like fire. He opened the box, stared at the stack of envelopes, pulled one out at random. I recognized it, the one about the garden, about the seedlings crushed by someone's boot. He read a few lines. His jaw tightened. She kept them all, he said quietly. Yes. Unopened. No. She read them. She read every single one. His head snapped up. She read them. She fell in love with you through them. That's what she wrote in her letter. She said she fell in love with the man who loved me. She was scared and she was selfish and she was wrong. But she kept them safe. She kept them for me to find. And before she died, she found you. She gave me your address. James looked at me. Really looked. His grey eyes moved across my face like he was memorizing it, comparing it to the photograph Michael had shown him years ago, the one of me laughing at someone's wedding. You came, he said. I came. After all this time. After 2 years. You came. I'm so sorry, James. I'm so sorry I wasn't here on June 14th. I'm sorry you waited alone. I'm sorry for every Sunday you sat here hoping. I'm sorry my grandmother stole those years from us. I'm sorry I didn't know. I'm sorry. He reached out and took my hand. The touch stopped my words cold. His hand was warm, calloused, real. The hand that had written those letters. The hand that had held sunflowers on an empty platform, waiting for a ghost. Stop apologizing, he said softly. You didn't do anything wrong. But I should have known. I should have. How? How could you have known? You can't fight a ghost, Clara. You can't fight secrets people kept from you. All you can do is show up when you finally learn the truth. He squeezed my hand. And you showed up. I looked down at our hands. Then at the sunflowers beside him. Then at his face, this stranger who felt like home. I read your letters, I whispered. All of them. I know you, James. I know about your father's terrible advice and your mother's piano lessons. I know about Duke, the dog who waited for you at the bus stop. I know you carry The Old Man and the Sea in your pocket and read it so often the pages fall out. I know you planted a garden in the desert and cried when it died. I know you dream about me. I know you love me. His eyes glistened. And I know, I continued, "that I love you too. I've loved you since the first letter, since the one where you said you just needed someone to listen. I've loved you through every word you wrote. I've loved you without ever meeting you. And now that I'm here, now that I'm finally here, I don't ever want to leave." James didn't speak. He didn't need to. He pulled me gently down onto the bench beside him, wrapped his arm around my shoulders, and pressed his forehead to mine. The sunflowers lay between us, bright and yellow and alive. We sat like that for a long time. Two strangers who knew each other's souls. Two people who'd found each other through words and war and the complicated love of a woman who'd made terrible choices for the right reasons. Finally, James spoke. "She did this," he said quietly. "Your grandmother. She took the letters. She hid them. But she also kept them safe. She read them. She loved them. And at the end, she gave you the truth." I nodded against his shoulder. "I don't know if I can forgive her," I admitted. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." "That's okay," James said. "Forgiveness isn't for her. It's for you. And you have time." I looked up at him, at his grey eyes, soft now, full of something I'd only read about in letters. "What about us?" I asked. "Do we have time?" James smiled. It was the first time I'd seen him smile, really smile, and it was everything I'd imagined and more. "We have all the time in the world," he said. "We've already waited 2 years. I think we can handle the rest." He picked up the sunflowers and handed them to me. "For you," he said. "I've been saving them for someone special." I laughed. It was the first time I'd laughed since finding the letters, since learning the truth, since my world turned upside down. It felt like coming home. We sat on that bench for hours, talking, touching, learning each other in person the way we'd already learned each other on paper. The old man at the flower cart smiled and waved when we finally left, hand in hand, sunflowers in my grip, the showbox tucked under James's arm. We drove back to my grandmother's house that night. I introduced James to my mother, who cried and hugged him and apologized for things that weren't her fault. We sat in the kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd learned the truth, and we told James everything. The letters, the secrets, the complicated love of a woman who'd tried to protect me from heartbreak and ended up causing it instead. James listened. He held my hand under the table. And when we finished, he said the only thing that mattered. "She loved you. She made mistakes, but she loved you. And in the end, she brought us together. That's what matters. That's what I'll remember." That night, we went back to the attic. Together. We sat among the dust and the memories, and James read me his letters out loud, the ones he'd written in the desert, the ones I'd read alone just hours before. But this time was different. This time, his voice filled the space, warm and alive and real. And when he finished, he pulled out the final letter. The one I hadn't read to him. The one my grandmother had written. I read it to him by the light of the bare bulb, my voice shaking only a little. When I finished, we sat in silence for a long moment. Then James reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. A photograph, worn at the edges. He handed it to me. It was me. At Michael's sister's wedding. Laughing at something off camera, head tilted back, eyes closed, so alive. "I carried this everywhere," he said. "Through the war. Through the hospital. Through every Sunday on that platform. You kept me alive, Clara. You kept me human. You kept me hoping." I looked at the photograph. Then at him. "You kept me waiting," I said. "For a love I didn't even know existed. And now that I've found it, I'm never letting go." He kissed me then. Soft and warm and full of promises. 2 years of letters, 2 years of waiting, 2 years of hoping, all leading to this moment, in my grandmother's attic, surrounded by dust and memories and the echo of words that had finally found their home. The next Sunday, we went back to the train station. We bought sunflowers from the old man, who smiled and nodded like he'd been expecting us. We sat on the same bench where James had waited for so long. And we talked about the future, about where we'd live, what we'd do, how we'd spend the rest of our lives making up for lost time. We didn't mention my grandmother. Not that day. But I felt her there, In the warmth of the sun, in the yellow of the flowers, in the weight of the letters we'd left at home, safe in the showbox tied with pink ribbon. She'd taken something from us. But she'd also given us something, a story, a love forged in words, tested by time, proven by patience. And every Sunday, we go back to that station. We buy sunflowers. We sit on that bench. And we remember. Some loves are written in letters. Some are built on waiting. And some, the best ones, are found in attics, hidden by grief, waiting for the right moment to bloom. James was my soldier. And I was finally home.